Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. Today is the President's Day, so those of us who had to work, obviously, but those who had the time off today, I hope you had a wonderful President's Day, regardless of your line of work. And with me, as always, is my co-host from the opening. Excuse me, not opening. Sorry, I got to calm down myself there. But associate editor of the sports blog, Awful Announcing, it's Ken Fang. Ken, good evening, and how are you today on this President's Day?
Good to be on with you, Stephen. Had a nice 3-day weekend, and nice to be back with you. And we have a lot of things to discuss.
Absolutely. So, we've been kind of a sports talk show that talks a little different than just your normal typical X and O's or scores. So we're very, very honored to have this special guest tonight. He is somebody that we've had on our show previously in our old format when we used to do a regular a Podbean podcast recording, so we never got to see each other's face. He is one of the leading professor when it comes to sports and entertainment. He is the associate professor at the Department of Sports and Entertainment Management at the University of South Carolina. It is Mr. Nick Watanabe. Hi, Nick. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Well, Nick, let's start off with the important story. Yesterday, fresh off the NBA All-Star and the questions of the All-Star games and its viability has never been more hotter. The NFL has gotten away, obviously, with their long, controversial Pro Bowl format instead of an actual game. They have kind of gone into like more of a AFC versus NFC in the dodgeball, sled pushing and that kind of stuff. Obviously, listening to that on TV, on radio, or on watching it on TV, it's just kind of seems so weird. And yesterday's NBA's All-Star game, not just the score itself, but Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards, openly saying that they're not there to compete and all that kind of stuff. I want to know from your, sports management experience and perspective, what do you think is the future of All-Star games and pretty much all sports and its viability from a sports management and also from a business perspective?
I guess from my mindset, it's the first question is from the bottom line. So as long as it's padding the pockets of owners and the league and hopefully the players, then I think the All-Star game will continue, or at least, for the NBA. Start to ask questions when we get to the NFL, right? That's a case where I think we have some issues and, it just really hasn't been there. And I don't think it really ever has been there. The Pro Bowl, I think it's too close to the Super Bowl. No one really cares anymore. Why are we going through all this?
Yeah, well, the thing about the NBA, Nick, and I think that a lot of people were really angry about players not really playing. We had 200 points scored by the East. But the whole thing also, too, is especially on a business end, is hospitality, getting clients over. I know that ESPN is interested in having it because of the fact of being able to bring clients over. So as long as it's a viable event, do you see that at least, as you mentioned, as long as it makes money, but can you see that a network could still be interested in that, especially after what we saw yesterday and this weekend?
I think all we have to do is look at professional wrestling, right? If WWE is bringing in people, and in fact, you have the Rock heel turn happening as we speak again, and everybody's flocking like me, right? I'm sort of like, I don't really care. And then it's like, oh, the Rock's back. I'm like, okay. And he's a heel. It's like, oh, here I come running. I'm going to watch Raw just because I'm like, I got to see 5 minutes of the Rock making fun of people in Salt Lake City, right?
Yeah.
I think the NBA All-Star Game, we can sort of think of it as the same way. It is an entertainment spectacle. It is not the sport in terms of its competitive, purest form. It is there to entertain us and be something exciting for us to watch, which is why you get all the ancillary things. You have the 3-point contest. You have the giant goal court, which is just out of control. I was just stunned, but it's the direction we're headed.
Yeah.
So obviously, the game itself is kind of on, has a small shelf life. If the players, the NBA players, certainly don't see, at least nowadays, doesn't seem to be all that interested. Unless they get some substantial amount of money moving forward, and maybe the NBA might turn into another glorified, NFL Pro Bowl type event down the road. Might not seem so far-fetched. So it will be very, very interesting to see if the the players and the fans and even the networks themselves kind of accept the NBA All-Star Game for what it is, despite all the tinkerings of the formats, etc. So the other question that obviously I've studied sports management myself at George Washington is the public support for financing of stadiums. And a lot of questions, or a lot of the news has been lately, is centered in Chicago, where the Bears had originally purchased the land at the Arlington Heights, where the old horse racing track was, or used to be, but they've completely tore down. And now the new team president, Kevin Warren, wants to build it in the city. And speaking of Chicago, the White Sox owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, has been in the news. Last Friday, it was a news dump that he's seeking a public support for about $1 billion to build a stadium in the South Waterfront area. So obviously the question that I've already posted is that why are the owners continuing to ask public support for the stadium finances, and why do the cities and the fans continue to fall for it? And Nick,
I hate to be too callous, but because we're dumb enough to keep giving it to them. I mean, it's just the reality. Too many of us will follow whatever's reported, and let's just be honest. I mean, we can see that there's a lot of media sources that take the side of the team, or if not taking the side, that might be a little unfair, just are rehashing a press release that says this stadium will have $4 billion of economic impact. And then when you actually get into the crux of it, we find that it's, the same in-plan or CSL studies that are basically saying, hey, we count on this spending and we multiply it by a really large arbitrary number, which makes no sense. And thus we can have billions of dollars of impact. And, it's just a comedy about how much these numbers keep inflating, and it just keeps growing and growing. In some places, we have had politicians who have been savvy enough to say, no, we're not putting this money forward. Why should we give money to this project? You should be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. I think Chicago's actually been very good within that realm. Cubs didn't get really any public money. Mm-hmm. Bears, a different story because it's Park District, right? So it's sort of related to the city. Reinsdorf, $1 billion. I mean, we got to be realistic here. I mean, my Cubs fan is going to show, but are the
makes two of us? So
are the White Sox really worth $1 billion to consumers to keep in Chicago?
Right,
in a brand new waterfront? No. Reinsdorf just wants the newest, fanciest stadium, and it's all part of the game, right? All the teams are doing it, and they'll keep asking us for money till the end of time. And we know they can afford this because look at Kroenke, right? Kroenke, my Arsenal arch nemesis, but also somewhat making me happy recently. He built SoFi, right? Yes. It's not 100% private because there's always ancillary costs, land development, all of these things. But we built that. That's 2-3 times the cost of most of these baseball stadiums and other NFL stadiums will cost. This is this is the highest ticket priced item in terms of stadiums in the U.S., North America. He privately financed it in some of the most expensive real estate in America. So if he can do that, why are we still saying yes to Tennessee, to Washington, D.C., this new monumental project, to what's coming in Chicago? I mean, it just every day, it feels like I see another one. And credit to J.C. Bradbury, Brad Humphreys, Victor Matheson, the three leading economists in this area who constantly are fighting this public battle, especially J.C. He is out there every day trying to fight the good fight. I feel bad for him because he's arguing with people who have no idea what they're talking about when he's written numerous papers on this, literally is traveling on his own dime to speak publicly about it, to try to save us, the taxpayer, millions, if not billions of dollars.
Because it's interesting. You mentioned about, briefly mentioned about Washington, Ted Leonsis, and a good article came out this weekend on the Washington Post in regards to Leonsis trying to basically play Washington and Virginia, Arlington, Virginia off each other. Glenn Youngkin tried to get, is basically rubber stamp the project, but now the legislature isn't on board with it, luckily for them. And also you still have people angry in Washington about Leonsis trying to leave there. I'll ask a follow-up to that, but what does it take for an owner to finally just say, hey, look, I know that the politicians don't want to be the ones that have the team leave, but credit to the Washington, Virginia legislature for not falling for Leonsis's dog and pony show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated picture. Just look what happened when the Browns left Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh, that's right up. As a Browns fan, I know very well about that one.
Yeah, I mean, think about the local politicians. Like, that's the easiest campaign to ever run. If you want to kick someone out of office, I just, vote for Nick Watanabe. He didn't lose the Browns. My opponent did. They're the losers. Oh, boom. I've won an election. I don't even need to raise much money. This is the easiest thing ever, right? So politicians obviously have that side to worry about. Yet we still have politicians who have very strong bases, would not lose, and are still voting yes. I mean, just look at Nashville. We're talking, what is this, $2 billion? It's ridiculous. It's like, there is no need for that kind of money to be spent on a stadium. And I mean, that stadium's not that old. I mean, it's getting old, but the only reason is this, and for the NFL especially, it's that whole Super Bowl clause. If you're not basically a top 5-10% stadium in the league, no Super Bowl. Well, if Nashville wants a Super Bowl, there's only one answer. It's to pony up $2 billion, host essentially one event. And that is not worth it.
Yeah, the next thing also too, I mean, the owners, it seemed like in the 80s, in the 90s was luxury suites. Now it's mixed use facilities. I mean, what is it for the next thing? I mean, it seems as if they're looking for other ways to quote unquote maximize their revenue and also bill taxpayers. But what is it about mixed use facilities that all of a sudden has become the rage amongst the owners?
I mean, it's why just my sporting events when I can host everything, right?
Right.
When they see the price of what a Taylor Swift ticket goes for, my team's chump change compared to that. Taylor Swift is like 5 home games for me. Boom, let's bring her in. In fact, can she do 3 nights? Right? Let's do it all. I mean, and let's be honest, with them in control of the schedule, that actually allows them to sort of maximize that revenue. Right? And cities give up these schedules when they hand over these stadiums to teams. It's a big problem. Like Seattle, Key Arena, when the Sonics were there, lost money for Seattle every year. Then boom, the Sonics went away to Oklahoma. Next year, they turned their first profit ever. It's not a coincidence. Sport team left. City got to control the schedule. Oh, now we can put Justin Bieber on Saturday night instead of Thursday, right? And all of a sudden, we can make the revenue. We don't have to share it. We don't have to do splits. And poof, it worked. So that's why they like these mixed-use facilities, because the revenue that they can generate off of them is great. And honestly, some of these facilities are amazing. Going to like State Farm Center in Atlanta. I don't know if you've seen the courtside bar they have. They have this courtside bar that has the shape of the logo. The bar's actual counter is the shape of the Hawks logo.
Yeah.
Anyone can go to it. That's the brilliant part. So they've made it so me, Joe Schmo, and the 300s can still come down and buy a drink there. So at least for 5 or 10 minutes, I'm courtside.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're doing all these kind of brilliant things to, continue to raise revenue. But I think the real play now is land, right? Yeah. Why does Washington want to do this development? I can guarantee you the owners have some land development ideas that are going there. Yeah. Angels did it in Anaheim, by the way. That's just across the street from Disneyland. So that's some great real estate. Even Dan Gilbert, right? He's been trying to bring MLS to Detroit. No coincidence. He owns I think half of downtown Detroit, real estate wise. That might be.
He's the owner and chairman of Rocket Mortgage, for those who are not familiar, by the way. So
yeah, I mean, he's essentially the deal he wanted to pull in Detroit is they have a half-built county jail that never got finished during, not the pandemic, but the financial crisis. He wants them to just give him that land, and he's going to build them a jail out somewhere further away, because it does two things for him. One, it gets the jail away from all his expensive property, so keeps his property values higher. B, put an MLS stadium, raise those values even higher, right? So he's all in this for real estate, right? Mm-hmm. His main goal of an MLS team is not, I need to win the US Open Cup, but I need to make money on my real estate deals.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought up MLS and the US Open Cup, because we'll try and get to that debacle in a little bit later. By the way, tonight, our special guest is Nick Watanabe, Associate Professor at the Department of Sports and Entertainment Management at the University of South Carolina. Steve Negishi and Ken Fang, we thank you for watching us. By the way, Ken is leaving at the bottom of the hour for personal reasons, so we're trying to squeeze as much as possible before, Ken is off tonight. So we'll get to the sports biggest one, of course, the one that we've had recently, the business of Super Bowl. We had it in Las Vegas, obviously 2 Sundays ago. It feels like it's hard to believe that the football season is officially over, but
it's never over, Stephen. We know that.
Right. But the actual game itself is no longer obviously playing. So the business of Super Bowl obviously involves the the commercials and the halftime shows, which obviously is a big deal now. But Nick, watching this year's Super Bowl's ads. Obviously, there's the the ones that was favorably received and all, but what is the trend that you're seeing from a advertising perspective? Because it seems like the quality of the ads seems to be, I don't want to say falling by wayside, but it doesn't seem to be like these companies paid this much money for this,
Well, I mean, I would often defer here to my marketing colleagues who have a lot more expertise than me. But, when we think about what was it this year? $7 or $8 million for the 30 seconds?
I think $7 million for 30-second ads, right?
$7 million for 30 seconds. And how many ads did Temu place during this?
Probably like 6.
So there's $50 million of your budget down the drain. No, but if you think about it, okay, $7 million plus you've got to do all the activation, which is going to cost more than $7 million.
Right.
Plus you got to shoot the actual thing, produce it, write it, probably pay appearance fees to multiple celebrities, right? Because it just has to be. You have to find mostly A-list celebrities unless you're very innovative. And, we're talking a $7 million single 30-second ad is really a $50 million plus investment, and that you're going to have to run with this ad and this campaign, and it really better be big. I think it's come to the point where it's become formulaic, right? Everybody is trying to do certain things and these same things, and it's not innovative anymore. So, the question is it worth it to spend this much money? From my perspective, no, because I'm also one of these people who reads too many research papers and says, what is the actual value that marketing has? Can we actually measure it? I think Super Bowl, you do get that visibility, right? There is that benefit. But how many of us actually went to Temu and has bought something since the Super Bowl?
Right.
No. I've actually posted that question, and not many people, because I think there's a lot of controversy involving, the company itself, the way it's being financed,
Yes.
particularly from the, the Chinese government, and the obviously the information being leaked, or at least wrongfully used and such. So, yeah, I just don't see the attractiveness of Temu when you look deep inside as to who is behind Temu. And if you do the Google research and all that, you'll be like, wait, why is this company always seems to be on my YouTube channel or on sporting events, and also all over the TVs and stuff like that. So,
I mean, not to make light of that, but the worst thing that their parent company might have done is their advertisements in China never leave my brain. The Pinduoduo ads. Oh my gosh. During the 2018 World Cup, I was in China.
Yeah.
Like they were, and in Asia, if you watch events, often they'll repeat the same ad twice.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
right. And so you'll see this Pinduoduo ad twice. And I think by the end of the trip, my wife, who's Chinese, already like kill me, because I was just like singing the Pinduoduo song all day long. And she's just like, oh my gosh, you've been infected. So when Temu came up, I was like, who the heck is this? She's like, it's Pinduoduo, you fool. And I was like, oh, I remember them from that other advertisement. So there you say marketing is effective.
Yes. I mean,
but I bought nothing.
And I probably don't plan on buying anything from that site anytime soon. But they are probably the major sponsors of sporting events, not just here in America, but probably in the globally moving forward, I guess now, right?
Yeah, Nick? I mean they're gonna be buying ad space everywhere, and this has been, a strategy for Chinese companies. I think one of the strange ones is what is it, Mengniu, the milk and yogurt dairy producer from China. You can barely find that in the U.S. Like at really obscure Asian markets, you can get it occasionally. The yogurt, it's great stuff, by the way. I love it.
Yes.
But that ad doesn't target us yet. We're going to see it at least 10 times during every World Cup match. So in this case, I think Temu is a little bit more strategic in that if we tie in Temu and Pinduoduo, we're hitting all our audiences globally. Maybe we can sell and be more successful. And I will admit, I was looking for a piece for a camera the other day, and I was looking for the piece online. First hit was Temu.
Wow.
As Stephen mentioned, we're speaking with Nick Watanabe, the associate professor for sport and entertainment management at the University of South Carolina. We appreciate him coming on with us. One question before I go, and before I go, at least, you talk about the business of the Super Bowl, and you touched briefly on it before, but I just want to talk a little bit about it now, about how cities have to bid for it. You talked about a new stadium really helps in that matter, and sometimes overreaching. You mentioned about also what's going on in Nashville with what they're going to be doing with building a new Nissan Stadium or whatever they're going to be calling it. Is that another case where a city's going to be trying to overreach to try and get a big event? Because as we know, Nashville isn't considered a major market. Las Vegas isn't either, but they managed to get a Super Bowl thanks to a new stadium. Is it another case where a city will have to overreach to get a big event like that?
I think the answer is yes in a lot of cases. I think we have to put a little asterisk next to Nashville and Vegas because they have, sort of become entertainment capitals in some sense. So they do a lot of traffic. But that's actually part of the argument, I think, why they shouldn't be hosting this, because you're driving traffic that would have been there out.
Right.
It's some of these, the F1 race in Vegas, the Super Bowl, these are some of the prime times for Vegas.
Right.
These are some of the times where they're already charging high money, getting a large number of visitors, and driving all of this out. It's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. So we're speaking with Nick Watanabe, the Associate Professor of Sports and Entertainment Management at University of South Carolina. Before Ken goes at the bottom of the hour for personal reasons, I just wanted to kind of touch Burr's bases. I'm sure this is something that Ken is also interested in, is the streaming service merger news that popped up late last year. Of course, is the I'm going to try and share the screen of Awful Announcing article. Just to plug in the the site that Ken works for. Awful Announcing talked about the possibility of Warner Brothers and then the Paramount CEO Bob Bakish, who was in the news after laying off a couple of employees globally last week or so. They're talking about merger, and then this is obviously the amount of streaming services if they were to merge in one platform. Obviously, a lot of sporting contents, I should say, involved with the CBS Sports, Warner Brothers Sports, and of course, Paramount carries the NFL, Paramount Plus as well. And then HBO Max does the soccers for both U.S. men's and women's as well. Nick, why is companies all of a sudden discussing about the merger? Is it because of a market saturation of so many, streaming services, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, sports, and then also, football, et cetera, Is the market kind of reached its peak in terms of too many service companies, and maybe they're just starting to try and consolidate before they start to lose more money?
I think that's pretty much spot on. And another sport economist, Rod Fort, had actually talked about this, that eventually we're going to break apart and then there's going to be this reconsolidation, right? Everything's going to get wrapped back together and we have reinvented cable TV. Congratulations.
So it's back to cable again. Yes.
Right.
Yes, correct.
Right. Yeah. The thing is that what's interesting is we noted here, right before COVID, seemingly everybody wanted to get that part of that Netflix pie, as Netflix seemed to have the right model of it. And then now, as Stephen mentioned, Paramount Global had to lay off 800 people after the Super Bowl looking for a buyer. It seemed like after they merged CBS with Paramount, their the value of the company went down significantly. So again, that bundle, even when everyone says the cable bundle isn't working, is it to the fact that maybe we see the streaming bundle not working?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we have it's a clear case where, we need, they're still figuring this out, right? And I think everybody thought if we go off on our own, no problem. But we're seeing that, no, we actually have to bring things together. And we see as each piece sort of gets re-added and reintegrated back in, it seems to be doing a little bit better. But then, of course, we may get to this oversaturation point again on the other end. So I think expect a lot of fluctuation back and forth for the coming years.
Do you think the customers or consumers will benefit from this merger or not so much?
That's a good question. Less passwords to manage. That's one positive. In terms of our prices, I don't know. And it's also a question of, can these, platforms, especially when they're all sort of integrating together, will they have the infrastructure there to handle all the traffic? I can tell you, I constantly have problems with Peacock. It's I battle all the time, especially for the Premier League Saturday mornings. It shouldn't have this many problems at 6:30 a.m., but a lot of it is.
Well, on that note, I'm going to have to take off. Nick, it's great talking to you. Hopefully, I'll be able to, next time we have you on, I'll be able to be on for the entire show. But it was good to be on with you, Stephen, and I know you're going to be doing a great job with Nick the rest of the way. And have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks, Ken. All right. Well, Ken obviously dropped out tonight for personal reasons. He'll be joining me tomorrow night, same time with our special guest, Emily Jones McCoy from the Texas Rangers broadcast team working for Bally Sports Southwest tomorrow night. We'll post it on that information a little bit later on our Twitter X. So earlier we talked about you mentioned about the MLS and the USOC. I am a big soccer fan, as you are. And so the controversy involving MLS and USOC, I think this was back late last year. I'm trying to refresh my memory from this, Nick, if you can help me out here. I think the U.S. Open Cup is a tournament that's a long, rich in history. It's kind of like similar to, FA Cup in England, where every team, not just the pros in the Premier League, but also the lower divisions and even the amateurs, all compete for the same cup. So that's somewhat the equivalent of what the USOC is about. But MLS, because of their money grab scheme, just kind of invented the League's Cup of their own, which involves the MLS team versus the Liga MX in Mexico. So they have kind of oversaturated their schedule to a bit. And now they're talking about pulling out of USOC if they cannot, play, with they're just only the reserves team now. And it's really drawn, and the US Soccer Federation said no. But now the news came out today. There was still a bit of a issue about the format, that they were having some problems. And, the USSF was maybe, I don't think it was ever even a discussion about maybe threatening to pull the Division I status from the MLS, which means that they cannot compete in the CONCACAF or FIFA sanctioned tournaments, if that was ever to happen. But now there's a report that came out a little bit tonight by Jeff Carlisle, the noted soccer writer for ESPN. Looks like they got the new format under the new proposal, which something that I'm going to try and read about it. But Nick, as a soccer fan, and you as well, when you hear some news about MLS is trying to strong arm a U.S. Soccer Federation, which is somewhat unusual, because usually it's the the federation that normally maintains the tournament and so forth. What do you make of this news about the dysfunction that the soccer in this country has? It's with its closed system, and there's no promotion and relegation like you see in other countries.
Well, first off, I think what MLS is trying to do is just a page out of the Premier League textbook, right? When the Premier League was formed 1992, essentially the top teams in England said, forget the Football Association. We're going to make our own even better league. They did, and It is the most watched global sport product in the world, essentially. So can I fault MLS fully? No. Now let me dial that back. I think no Premier League team would ever dare say we're not going to field our best team in the FA Cup. Right. That is a top competition in their world. They're not going to say, hey, we don't really need the FA Cup. We're going to focus on the league and the League's Cup. I mean, if you told somebody in England, I really want to focus on the Carabao Cup and not the FA Cup, you would get laughed at. People would be like, get lost.
I know.
It's ridiculous. Lots of thoughts on this, actually. I think the threat of pulling the D1 license is incredible. I had not seen such a strong move from the United States Soccer Federation for so long, I think. It has been the case that MLS has been somewhat unchecked, and pulling the D1 license is a different is the nuclear option, because not only does that remove us from CONCACAF FIFA Club World Cup, that removes anybody playing in MLS from playing internationally.
Right, and which means, by the way, is that the MLS players without the D1 designation would not be eligible to play for the United States men's national team, actually.
or Messi for Argentina, and I can tell you what'll happen.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, I think that's the case. I maybe I'm wrong there, but I believe if you're playing in a league that has the D1 license pulled, everyone's basically disqualified.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see Messi holding out essentially in that case. Like, Argentina is more important than me than, I hate to say it, playing against Nashville on a Tuesday night.
Right. It seems as though that not every MLS team will be likely be participating, and it looks as though maybe only the few teams that are likely to be involved in this. But
it's a shame.
It's a shame, absolutely. It seems as though the MLS is only interested in money grab right now, with the the Messi being the focal point. Apple TV deal doesn't seem to be as lucrative as it seems, with the subscribers number, maybe just above 1 million, maybe not the number that the MLS was looking for. Obviously, off the pitch, there was a controversy about the expensive shirt, the Carolina FC, Carolina FC, obviously. With that, not the replica one, but the $179 for a jersey, which is really, really ridiculous. And then on top of that, they're actively trying to back out of the U.S. Open Cup. And then complain about this, the scheduling, which they brought it on to themselves because they want to make quick buck at the expense of stalling the USL, even the women's game, et cetera, all because of one man that's Don Garber, the MLS commissioner, who me and several others out there like to refer to him as Don Garbage, but. With the Copa America obviously happening later in this summer, Nick, certainly, with the stadiums and the games already been officially announced as well, just around the before Super Bowl, with the FIFA's, like a week before the Super Bowl. Do you see this as like a kind of a crossroad for the U.S. soccer and the MLS and how they operate themselves? Because let's be honest here, Nick, U.S. Soccer Federation has been, known for its somewhat of a sexist and racist policy to a degree, and their the way they do business has been long been considered shady and everything. But I just don't know if the fans should be optimistic, even with the 2026 soccer. The World Cup coming here, that we'll really be able to take this, soccer to the next level here.
We're still under the legacy of Soccer United Marketing.
Yes.
The formation of that organization and its control of Major League Soccer, U.S. soccer rights for so many years, basically put us in this situation. And was it a money grab? Yes. And it controlled way too much. And that's basically what the legacy we're living under.
Yes.
So from MLS's perspective, I understand why they don't want to play in the U.S. Open Cup. It's not on Apple TV. It's not our moneymaker. It's not on our platform. Who gives a heck, right? I mean, right. It's whatever. We'll send the Chicago Fire. I mean,
yes.
Sadly, that used to be a threat. Now it's a joke.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's a series of debacles. You think, what else can the league screw up, right? So, okay, one, we're not going to play in the U.S. Open Cup. Okay, we'll pull your D1 license. All right, we'll agree to some teams going. It's a shame. In fact, one of the highlights of my sport management career was working for the Chicago Fire. They won the U.S. Open Cup. And in fact, I was part of the trophy presentation team for the next year. We had the U.S. Open Cup sitting on a table in the middle of Soldier Field, and then at halftime. And then this team started warming up. And if you haven't seen the old cup, it was entirely made out of glass. And you can imagine soccer balls whizzing by a glass trophy and no one was doing anything about it. So one of my colleagues grabbed the cup and 4 of us literally ran off the field raising the cup and ran into the locker room and took photos with it. So one of the highlights of me working for the Fire. But I mean, it's a shame. I mean, that is an important cup, and it is named Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, right? Lamar Hunt, essentially, that man saved U.S. soccer at one point, right? He basically owned half the MLS teams because it was him and Anschutz, right? Basically,
Philip Anschutz, yes, that's right.
Only the 2 of them were willing to invest and keep this league alive, and here we are. We're going to say, forget this cup. The league would not exist without him.
Exactly.
And so we're gonna just forget this cup that's named for him for everything he did. It's just, I think it's poor. We forgot our history. We forgot our legacy.
Right.
I understand from a business perspective, you can't always pay attention to those things, but it feels like a shame. And then we get to the jerseys. What are we thinking? $159 for an authentic. You put a name on it, it's $200. So I have friends who are going to go watch Inter Miami. They're planning to buy an authentic Messi jersey, and they're like, I can't afford $200.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a damn shame. I'm going to pull up a photo of the an example of what we're talking about here. The MLS Inter Miami FC jersey, like $194. I believe this is just basically this is authentic, by the way. So
yes,
at least it's not a replica. But I can't imagine anybody, maybe only the diehards who has the money to buy such an expensive jersey. It's a bad nightmare for PR wise. Not just for MLS, but for Inter Miami, who had a disastrous overseas trip in Asia, where Messi barely played at all. He had to apologize. He had to offer a half-ass apologies about his injuries. There was fans in Hong Kong kicked his like a cupboard statue. Kung Fu kicked it. It's not. It was, and then he barely showed any interest in playing while he was in Japan. It was just a horrible look for not just for the Inter Miami, but even for the MLS as a whole, Nick. And now they're only their interest is only for themselves, and half-assing it. And you mentioned Lamar Hunt. Their sons don't seem to be all that caught up to be involved in soccer themselves, even though they own the FC Dallas. But certainly, you can't fault the Hunts because they're obviously more enjoying the success of the Kansas City Chiefs, more so than the soccer itself right now. So, what do you want to see the league? Obviously, we can't fault everything for everything because there's just too many. But what exactly do you want to see the U.S. soccer do well in terms of opening up the game and marketing to a more broader fan base, etc.? What do you really want to see from the USSF and MLS moving forward?
Well, let's take this one step forward, right? This jersey, okay, authentic. I'll get the replica. That's only $50 cheaper. $150 for a replica Messi jersey. You can get lost. Like, come on. I was literally talking to some families at a youth soccer game this weekend, just to watch a friend, and I showed them the prices, and they were stunned. They're like, "We can't afford this, right?"
Exactly.
It's out of the budget. What does U.S. soccer need to do? What does USSF need to do? Those are two different things, and we have a third problem still that I haven't talked about is the referees, right? They're going to basically have to use replacement referees because pro referee organization that oversees the union that oversees all referees has basically banned anyone from doing MLS matches. So you can't have any trained official doing MLS matches. It's a disaster. We're going to have terrible referees, over expensive jerseys. not playing in top competitions. It's just a mess. So across the board.
It is. And speaking of jerseys, we had a recent controversy involving Major League Baseball and the Fanatics themselves for, releasing a poor quality jersey for equally absurd amount, and the players themselves dislike it so much, but obviously it falls on deaf ears of Rob Manfred and so forth. But we'll get to that in a bit. But I do feel like the sports in this country are kind of at a inflection point, Nick. Both pro and the amateurs, and we'll get to the obviously you work for a institution, and in a little bit, but the greed and the money grab and all that kind of stuff seems to be at an all-time high. Do you feel that way right now? As somebody who's an expert in the sports business?
I would say that sport team owners have a mixture of objectives. But what we're seeing is definitely some what we would say profit or wealth maximization behavior recently. The goal is to make ourselves richer. I don't know how smart these strategies are in actually conducting this, because sometimes you actually can make more money by not selling out all of your seats. And so is this the kind of idea that they're going with this jersey pricing? We're only selling this number anyway, so why not squeeze out X more profit per shirt, and then we can maximize? That might be what's going on. If that's the case, then we've hit the point where I would say MLS has given up on growing the game. All they're caring about is making money, right? If they cared about growing the game, they would make it affordable so that everybody would be a billboard.
Exactly.
These jerseys signal to me we don't care about that. We want to – okay, they do care about it, but that's not their primary objective. Their primary objective is revenue, period.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and the consumers are completely priced out of the experience now. And if you look at the recent Super Bowl 2 weeks ago, you could look at the basically it's just I don't want to characterize certain groups of people, but it's just a lot of rich tech bros and celebrities and so forth that who are only able to actually attend a massive event like Super Bowl. And the reasons why we have three countries hosting the World Cup in 2026, US, Canada, and Mexico, is certainly just a pure money grab right now. And we had COVID, which obviously shut down a lot of businesses for about a year or so. And I just wonder, Nick, maybe the owners are just trying to recoup that money, whatever that they may have lost, in a form of, jerseys, or, just threatening cities and, excuse me, the fans about relocations and demanding more public money that we have earlier discussed. And it's a little bit shame that, sports in this country has gotten this blazant, and that the fans are obviously I don't want to say that there's not much else that they can do, but they just, don't seem to really care much about it nowadays, Nick.
I think the U.S. fan has always been a passive consumer. We happily pay the prices, not happily, but we pay the prices. We go,
right?
We complain about it, but we keep going. Look what happens in Europe when you raise ticket prices.
Exactly.
Protests. I mean, just look at what's happening in the second division of Germany, Bundesliga 2. They have people driving remote control cars with smoke bombs onto the pitch to stop games, raining tennis balls down, all kinds of things going on because people are unhappy with how their clubs are run.
Exactly. And they're talking about it because the Bundesliga is trying to maybe bring in private equity into their, club management, and also gain more capital, because obviously compared to Premier League and Liga Española, obviously they're just, there's a massive gap in terms of, the revenues that they can generate. And I'm just showing you a part of the, the carnage that took place in Germany, all over the not just in second division, but there were also more massive protests in the the first division as well this past Sunday. I think the game between Bochum and Bayern Munich was really completely sidetracked for a long time because of protests. At least certainly the culture is a lot more different. You have the money versus the club membership system, so to speak. But I hope that the fans don't get discouraged by what's happening. Sports is a last bastion where people of all ages and colors, they can forget about the the daily life. Also, what's going on around the world, politically and economically, that that they can gather around and support their to support their team. Excuse me, and everybody's welcomed regardless of their age or skin color or even religion. So it's important that we have to have a the mindset that that the sports is for the fans, and that it's not for business, or it's not for private equity to dismantle and then turn that into another money-making operations for for themselves. Nick, I want to close out, since you work for a university, and that is the NCAA and the NIL. That's it's I know it's a hot button topic. Charles Barkley said that the NIL is ruining the college sports, and to a degree, yes, I think. Excuse me. You can probably make an argument for that, but it seems as though the damage is already done. You have especially NCAA transfer portal turning into like a wild west. With the schools offering a lot of money for transferable candidates to switch teams, which makes it a lot more easier nowadays. And it seems as though the future of NCAA and its role have long been questioned. Now that it's even more, under the gun more than ever now. Do you think the NCAA survive, or do we see a new organization that only oversees football and basketball, which is obviously the long been considered a major money-making sports?
Yeah, I could see multiple things happening. For example, I think we have the reality that there could be essentially the U.S. college version of a super league. Let's just get all the money makers together.
Yeah.
Smash all the big teams into one super conference, and the rest of you do whatever. We don't care. We're not going to make money. That's essentially what it'll be, is let's make money. Will that happen under the auspices of the NCAA? Could be, or it could be a separate organization. I think that's somewhat up to the conferences, really.
Yeah.
As to Charles Barkley saying the NIL is killing college athletics, I would say that the NCAA has long been killing college athletics. To blame the NIL and athletes finally getting paid is, I think, a little bit ridiculous. And if it was really killing it, show me the massive drop in demand, show me the massive drop in revenue and broadcast and viewership and ticket sales. Pretty sure we're still upticking in all of those metrics. The one thing that's catching up now is those athletic departments have higher costs that they had not basically budgeted for. And so it is a little bit of a reckoning. We have college football coaches who are getting paid higher than NFL coaches just because we can extract the rent and pay a coach a fortune because I don't have to pay players. Well, guess what? This is a new reality. This is a new economic system. It's a new market. If the NCAA is to survive, they have to operate within this market or find a way to legally restrict it. Good luck with that is what I would say. I think the can of worms is already open. We're already advancing down this path. If I was the NCAA and if I was in charge, which they'll never put me in charge, so this is just all hypothetical, I would say let's just fully adopt NIL. In fact, let's look at other ways of paying athletes, maximizing revenue, and basically providing as much as we can to the athletes and to the staff and to the coaches. I do feel bad because there are athletes who are essentially getting left behind because of NIL deals.
Yeah.
And now there's also staff members who are making $35,000 working as a SID or, assistant intern to the SID who watches an athlete drive off in a $100,000 car thinking, why am I doing this? And I do know actually some senior people in executive positions who left college athletics because they think with the NIL, it's just over. So I do see people who think it's over. I think it's not over. I think it's just a reordering of the market, and we just have to be prepared and be flexible. Unfortunately, the NCAA is not known for being prepared or flexible. So, and we can see that, right? They had that giant slush fund of cash that could have helped them weather COVID, but their lawyers told them to spend it before these lawsuits came in so they wouldn't have to share it with athletes. Well, look what happened, right? So poorly prepared, didn't really think about all this. It's just a matter of time, I think, before either NCAA gets smart leadership or has to entirely reform because the Big Ten, the SEC, basically say we're splitting off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, the Big Ten, SEC split off with Notre Dame, enticed a couple of the Big 12 teams.
Sure.
You've got most of basketball and football handled right there.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously Big Ten and the SEC are leading the charge to form their own, organization that oversees basically, like a super league that you were mentioning, and possibilities that the other, D1 schools might be under a bit of an umbrella where maybe, unlike soccer in this country, maybe they're able to adopt a promotion relegation type stuff in college football, where lower end of the conference teams could be maybe dropped down in favor of other teams from another conferences, and certainly maybe the likes of we had this possibility that maybe schools like Vanderbilt being kicked out of SEC, or even the lesser teams from Big Ten, maybe like Northwestern. If it wasn't for the educational purposes, they would have been kicked out of the league a long time ago. And nowadays, I think that possibility could be not so far-fetched anymore, where schools being forced out of a conference, like we saw with Rutgers being kicked out of the Big East at the time, and nobody batted an eye. This is now a massive reality that we're looking at, right, Nick?
I mean, yeah. People might someday say, University of Chicago was half a century ahead of their time when they got rid of football, right? They saw the writing on the wall. This is not the business they're going to be in, and credit to them. That's what they did. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm an Illinois grad. I mean, many years, I feel like Illinois would be like a third division club, right? It's like
exactly. I'm a Illinois fan too in both football and basketball. And while the basketball is doing much better this year, it seems as though football is like it's like stuck in a spinning wheel. No matter how hard they try, and then with a school like Illinois, obviously NIL, it's difficult to compete with the likes of Michigan and Ohio State and the the same conference. Those schools will always dominate in terms of coverage, money, and the media coverage. So maybe 5-10 years from now, you're right, Nick. Schools like Illinois, or even your current school, South Carolina, which has had some nice success in the SEC in both football and basketball and even baseball, but there might be even schools like that might be at a like a crossroads when it comes to whether or not they're able to continue the program, unless there's a massive financial support from its alumni and boosters, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think here we're probably okay because ticket sales are through the roof. I mean, they are doing well, but I mean, let's be honest, Illinois is not a sellout kind of situation.
No, it's kind of embarrassing whenever I see the like more than 10,000 empty seats in that stadium, because it's just not worth watching or celebrating.
Yeah, I mean, I sat in on feasibility plans for stadiums for other teams that are in the SEC.
Yeah.
And, they're acting like we sell out every game. And I look at the numbers. I was like, no, you don't. No, you. And there was teams that I saw one sellout per year. And I was just like, it's okay. But why are you even thinking about building a new stadium, especially in this current economic climate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should be worried about this program and getting it together. I mean, and then look, Mizzou got put under they put the AD under this new financial regulations from the Board of Curators, and boom, she's gone. She's off to Arizona today.
Right.
She took a pay cut because she's like, why should I work under this when I can go and have more oversight and control somewhere else? Took a pay cut. I mean, that says a lot that you take a pay cut to go work somewhere else. Now, granted, it is her alma mater, but I think that the amount of financial oversight they were trying to put on her from the university system, she was out of there. And so that's another thing is the universities themselves are going to have to be involved in this battle.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that she left Mizzou to go to Arizona, correct? Right?
Yes.
Desiree Reed-Francois. Ironically, Arizona is in a massive budget, crunch themselves, and it's kind of ironic that she would see that as a better option than staying at her alma mater and then even taking a pay cut. So who knows? It's out of my pay grade. With the executives like that making the decisions. Obviously, that's in the best interest for not only for themselves but also for their families as well.
Yeah.
Nick, before we go, I want to ask you one quick question about the future of Oakland A's. There's been some conflicting reports about the Vegas mayor saying that they're probably better off being in the Oakland. What do you see happening with the A's and its future?
I mean, at this point, the A's may have to become a barnstorming team like back in the late 1800s, where you had to go from city to city and just play wherever, who would ever accept you. Because does Oakland really want them back? I mean, yes, but they're not going to give them that super facility they want. Does Las Vegas want them? Yes, but not to the level they thought. So I think the A's overestimated their worth.
Yeah.
I will say one thing to the credit for the A's wanting to leave Oakland is that the Coliseum is one of the worst professional sport facilities I've ever visited in my life. As a former resident of the Bay Area, I hope everyone gets out of the building safely, but maybe it could just slide into the bay or just be imploded. I mean, they have sewage problems, flooding problems. It's just a mess. No one wants to play there. The center field it's gigantic. You could land an airplane in center field because it's so deep. I mean, it's ridiculous. They do need a better stadium. But should we, the taxpayers, pay for it? And of course, my answer is no. But we know that the A's are notoriously cheap. You don't have a whole book and philosophy of Moneyball come out of your organization unless you could say, oh yes, they're just very efficient. No, they're cheap, right? And they didn't want to pay for players. If they didn't want to pay for players, they're definitely not going to want to pay for a stadium when other places are, dangling money. A's are in a tough spot because Las Vegas is falling apart. They've burned some bridges in Oakland, not all of them. Right. And then where else can you go? Like
Salt Lake City, maybe?
Salt Lake City really want the Athletics? I mean,
I know the Jazz owner was making noise about wanting to bring the baseball, right?
Yeah, he does. But I mean, does Salt Lake City residents really want to go watch the Athletics? I mean, yes, but I don't think to the level that's going to really support the team and make them super successful. Now, if I'm the owner of the A's and someone else offers to buy them, I'd sell them right away. Be like, I'm just washing my hands. I'm done with this. Why? I need to be done.
Yeah, it will be very interesting because obviously Rob Manfred made that news twofolds. One that he told the baseball fans, and particularly the A's fans, to go watch the Giants because they're in the same Bay Area, which pissed off a lot of people. Which is certainly nothing new when it comes to Rob Manfred. And 2029, Rob Manfred announced that he is finally leaving the commissioner position. So there's still probably, unfortunately, 5-6 more years of Manfredism, unfortunately. But we're going to keep an eye out on the future of A's and the other teams who might be making rumblings between now and then. It's obviously not just limited to baseball, but also in other sports as well. For those who are interested in learning more about the sports business and the program itself, you can follow Nick on Twitter, by the way. That is at Watanabe2K. Nick, before we go, one more thing about the program of sports management and its future. What is the something that students, young and old, need to understand about the learning of sports business and its obviously viability moving forward as a program?
I think a lot of people don't understand sport business when they first get into it. They think, I'm getting into it, I'm gonna make friends with all the athletes, we're gonna become best buddies,
Or celebrities. Yes,
I'm gonna watch all the games, I'm gonna hang out in the suite with the owner, and someday I'm gonna run the team, I'm gonna make all the trade decisions. The reality is you're gonna work when everybody else is off of work. So you're gonna have the strangest work schedule ever unless you're in sales. But even then, you're gonna also have to work the events because you've sold the ticket. Now you need to follow up with the customers who are there. So you have to work twice as hard. And I've had a student before, not here, a previous program, said their goal is to own a team. And I said, well, just quit. They were like, what? I was like, quit. You need to go into finance, join a hedge fund, chemical engineering, start an oil petroleum company. You need generational wealth. You need billions. And they were sort of like, what? I was like, that's what you need. I would say, a lot of places, the kids, I don't want to call them kids, the students will say, I want to be a GM. I want to run the team. And I think for a lot of programs, you may sell that. And I think it's sort of disingenuous. Like, we shouldn't be selling them that. We don't fully sell them on that, but we do actually sell them on the fact that you will learn from former presidents and GMs in our program. So that's actually one benefit of coming to South Carolina. We have Danny Morrison, who is the president of the Carolina Panthers, so the head man in charge. We have Susan O'Malley, who was the first NBA head executive and NHL. She ran the Wizards and the
I'm familiar
with the Capitals. She built the Capital One Arena in DC. She is literally, she was in charge. And so literally they teach a class in our program, learning from the presidents. And they literally learn from presidents. Guess who their guest speaker was today?
Who was it?
Sheila Johnson, founder of BET.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we literally have classes where you're learning from top executives. I'm just stunned when I see all this. I'm like, oh yeah, they just own a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah. Brought back, the names like that really brings back memories. I don't know if we ever had that many high profile guests, Nick, but we certainly had I had the pleasure of learning from the best people working in the all levels of sports business. It's not all fine and dandy or glamorous, like you said, because a lot of the sports takes place obviously on the weekends, when the people are off work, and you have to work, you have to really hustle. There's no question about that. And that's something I remember and learned. And obviously you got to have to keep pushing and keep pushing yourself moving forward, even if you're no longer working in the sports business. So whatever you learn in that field, hopefully young students, who are interested in moving into the business side of sports. So we'll understand and not get caught off guard just because, it's not as glamorous as you might think it is. Well, Nick, listen, thanks for your time as always. It's fantastic talking about the business side of sports. And we look forward to having you on again, someday, to talk more about the business of sports. Hopefully we'll talk more about the streaming merges and other trends. And Nick, best of luck to you the rest of the semester. And thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to be on the show. I love all these discussions. It's basically like I'm in class. So this is like for viewers. This is like
the
a
class
free
is in
class
session, and both Ken and I are smarter for learning from one of the best in the business, in Nick Watanabe. Nick, thank you as always, and we'll hope to have you on again soon. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.